Good afternoon again. I'm welcoming you all to this webinar to introduce you to the new feature in Saturn 11.5, that's the area charging. My name is Rajesh. I've got Vijay alongside with me who will do the demo part of it. And in today's webinar, this is the structure, this is what I'm going to talk to you about. A quick recap on what's there in the existing in terms of existing toll features in Saturn, and then what's the new area charging feature that you're going to see in 11.5, and then how you enter these area charging code into your network, and then what kind of outputs and analysis you can see in this feature. And all these will be done through a demo. And then at the end, again, I'll for those who have not heard about or who are not aware of Saturn Next, I'll just give you a quick brief about what Saturn Next is and how you can get your hands much earlier than the actual release onto these with regard to the area charging. So moving on the quick recap on existing Saturn tolls feature. You will all be knowing that currently tolls are defined as charge per link per user class. The charges could be either in time unit or in monitor unit, and these are defined generally in the buffer or simulation links or the turns, and also on central connectors. And you all know that it cannot be defined by node or zones. And in terms of if the tolls are on routes or a succession of links, then they become additive. So for example, what you see in the picture there is if a trip is going from A to D, then the toll would be a summation of 1 pound and 1.5 pounds. So toll will be 2.5 pounds, which will be used in the GC calculation of the trip that's using those two links. So this is how you would generally code the tolls in the 4.4 card, where you would be defining the A node, B node, and the toll by user class, or whether it's a ban or something like that. And also there's an option you can define it as a knobs file in 3.3 card. And moving on, Vijay, the kind of outputs that you would generally see is the standard reports that you would see in the LPT file, which you see on the right side top corner, or using P1X you can display the link and turn annotations, or you can also skim the tolls or the penalties, either using those two skim pen or skim toll, or if you're using skim all, that's the better option. So, and one thing you would all be aware that tolls are not levied on buses or fixed floors, it's only on the user classes that are there in the matrices. So this is what you have in terms of tolls in the existing Saturn software, but in the new 11.5 you're going to see this new area charging feature. So giving a quick introduction of what the what the features include. So it's nothing but it's a system of charging whereby every vehicle using the roads within an area pays a charge. So you can define a zone like what you have in London, you can define a charge zone, and then any trip that is using that links within that zone will be paying a charge. So the vehicles are not actually charged at the cordon, but charged for traveling within the area. So the area is defined using a watertight cordon, and so you define simply the links that represents that cordon. So in terms of area charging, you also need to be aware of two terminologies. One is the TAC, which is called the area charge, traffic area charge system. So it's a system, what kind of system it is, and then you've got the TAS, which is the traffic area zone within the charge system. So you can define a charge system, and then as all the links within that within that area, so they form that task. Moving on. So if you have got a TAS and then there is an OD trip AB, they the trip may leave or re-enter the charge area as many times as it likes, and it pays only once. Area charge this is the basic difference between the tolls at the entry and exit lanes and the area charging. So if it was kind of an entry exit charge, then in this example that what you see on the right hand side, the toll would have been paid at least 2 times, whereas in area charging it's only once. So it can enter the charge zone, exit, and then re-enter, but it would have still paid only once. Next slide, Vijay. You can also have multiple zones within a common with a common property. That is, you can have the same charge system, but you can have two different set of TAS zones, TAS areas where the charge system is applied. But if a trip travels traverses through both these TAS areas, still, because the charge system is still the same, it pays only once. It pays only the charge of £2. Whatever you see on the picture. So we call these individual cordon areas as zones, and the as I said earlier, the TAC is the charge system. Then you've got you can also have multiple charge system. Earlier, in the previous slide you saw 2 TAS but with the same charge system, but in this you're seeing 2 charge systems, and they can also overlay on each other, like what you have in London. You've got the 2 charge system overlapping in as an example. So what happens here is, if a trip is traversing A to B, for the trip A to B, the total toll paid will be £2 for using charge system 1, and then £3 for using the TAC 2 area. So if you have noticed, it traverses both the TAS 1 and TAS 2 of TAC 1, but still it is charged only £2. So you can define multiple charge system, but currently in the current version of Saturn, what we are going to release, it has got a limitation. It can only support 2 TAC systems. Next slide, Vijay. There is one more option. There is one more compliance. There's an option where certain classes of vehicles within particular user class might be exempted from paying toll. Like you can exempt petrol vehicles to be exempted from paying toll, and only the diesel vehicles are charged. So currently what's happening is we might have to split the matrices by some percentage and then put it as two different user classes for our assignment purpose in the current scenario. But with this new feature, what we can also define, we can just define the percentage split and then give it as an input in the network, and then the assignment would automatically do that. So it avoids adding extra user classes for compliant vehicles. Moving on, Vijay. Before I move on to the actual coding and other things, I just want to give you a quick couple of things on some terminologies that is being currently used. So one is a discretionary trip. So if an OD pair, if either an origin or destination of a trip wholly lies within the charge area, then the trip doesn't have an option and it has to pay the charge. So it becomes a mandatory trip. Whereas if O and D lies totally outside the charge area, but the minimum cost route involves the payment of charge, then those trips are called discretionary trips. So for our modeling purpose, we have greater interest in these kind of discretionary trips rather than all trips charged. So we'll also look into how our interest is mainly in the congestion effects coming from these rerouting of these trips to avoid charges. Next slide, Vijay. Then you've got something called charge regime. So what we define as regime are used to describe the possible options available to the user in terms of possible routes, options of routes that are available between point A to point B. And this is one of the key output that we would report as part of the assignment result. So if you're having a single charge system, that is, you've got only Tack 1, then there are only two possible regimes. One, a regime where you pay the toll or you don't pay the toll. That is Tar 1 and Tar 2. We call it as area regime 0 or area regime 1. And similarly, when you have two charge system, Tack 1 and Tack 2, then you will have four options. Either you don't pay both, or you pay 1 and don't pay 2, you pay 2 and don't pay 1, or you pay both. So accordingly you have the Tar 1, Tar 0 to Tar 3. So with this background, I'll quickly go into how you do the inputs in Saturn network, how you do the input of these area charging data. So it's again done in the 444 card as earlier, but the syntax is slightly different. You have to define four set of records. The area charging section will have four different record types. So the first record is on where you define a charge system. So you define a charge system and you can give a name to it. I mean, so that we as a user can understand what the charge system refers to. Then comes your record type 2, where you actually define the charge. So you can define three charges. One is the basic charge, which is actually the charge by user class. Then you've got something called supplementary charge, which I'm not going to touch upon now. But then the third one is the compliance fraction, like what you saw earlier, the percentage of the petrol vehicles and diesel vehicles, for example. So you can just give it as a percentage over there, which will be a value between 0 and 1 as a fractional value. Then the record type 3 will define the TAS. So you can similarly, like what you did for tag, you can give a name for your TAS, and then in record 4 you actually code the cordon links. So you code it as A node, B node, with B node being outside the cordon always. And this should be terminated by 999. So this is the simple coding. When Vijay does a demo, he'll actually show how it looks like in a DAT file. So maybe next slide has got a screenshot of how the network would look like. So you can have here in this example, if you see, you have got Tack charge 1 and Tack charge 2, and then you've got two different TAS zones also. So you can have multiple charge systems and multiple zones. Vijay will show this in an example when he is doing the demo. Quickly moving on, the next one was on the outputs and analysis. I'm not going to bore you with more slides on outputs and analysis, but I'll just quickly tell you what kind of outputs and analysis can be done. But I'll ask Vijay to do it more on the demo rather than the slides. So as usual, you can look at the summary statistics in terms of the SPT files and other things, or the SATLOOK and other things, where you will be able to see several descriptive statistics, including the total charge paid, etc., and so on. And similarly, there are several new features that has been added in the P1X module. So where you will see new options available. Vijay, next slide, please. So there will be new options available in P1X when you start displaying the links and then doing the trees and forest. I'm just rushing through this because I don't want to show it in slides. It's much easier for you to understand when you see it as a demo. So that's why I'm rushing on these. And then you can also do the skims of these matrices. I mean, you can do the minimum cost matrices and also the matrix of trips paying the charges. So with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it over to Vijay so that he can take you through the demo. And for this demo purpose, we have just created a dummy network. Vijay, next slide, please. I think you've got the network. Yeah. So we have just got a dummy network called Grotley network, which is there in our Saturn test folder. So we have just taken that example, and the red boundary, what you see is the charge area that's the charge. I mean area which is going to be charged. We're introducing the area charging to reduce the congestion in the city center of the Grotley area, and then these are the toll charges that we are going to uh, implement. So, with this background, Vijay, I'll hand it over to you to do it. I mean, show it on these Saturn screen so that it's much easier for people to understand. Over to you, Vijay.
Thanks, Rajesh. So going on to the demo, so I'll quickly move to my folder. I'll close this one. So I got a network where I got no charge. I'll just open it in a text file. Open it in a text pad. So if we see, if I make it a little bigger. So if we see, we got three user classes: cars, LGVs, and HGVs. And if I scroll down quickly to my 4 card, I was not. If I delete this, so that's not having any charge. And so to code a new charge, what I will do is I will start coding. I can start coding by introducing my 4 card and then go on typing my tag areas, which will be whichever I call as if I go if I see it's Grotley Town Center charge system, so I call it as congestion charging, for example. And then I can define the charge. If I see the slide, we said like it's 1.5 pounds for car and LGVs. It's defined as a fixed column, so and in pence. So for 1.5 pounds, I define as 150, and you can define fractions as well, and then 5 pounds for HGVs. Then if you have any complaints factor or supplementary charge or the secondary charge, you can define that here. But as we're not having anything, then we can go on to define our zones. So if I mention that as Grotley Town Center, and then we can see, we can go and add on all the links cutting through. So for that purpose, I will just open I'll just open one of the so if I do so if I just say this let's give me a minute. So if I change it to final and say sorry, I'm just setting my folders up. So if I quickly cut these and run the assignment, then we'll have an sorry. So I'll just do the assignment for no charge network. So it's going on doing the assignment now, and I'm just doing it to see my links, what will be there, and all I need is just the UFN. And if I go and put my links, sorry, node numbers. And looking at the Grotley example, we can see that it's excluding just the bypass and having the area defined for the whole town center. And going back to the P1X screen, you can see that's making the cordon of about roughly about here, this area. And how we define the cordon is all the links which are going out. So if I want to define this link, it will be 27 to 24 link, A node as 27 and B node as 24, and then moving on it will be 12 to 25, and then 11 to 13 and 11 to 16. So it's always I'm sorry, 16 to 11 and 13 to 11. So it will be it will be A will be always inside and B will be outside the cordon. That's how we define it. So I already got a network where I got the option coded. So if I open that quickly and move to the 4.4 card, you can see that I got a network here and I got 1.5 pounds charge for car and LGV and 5 pounds for HGVs. And I defined the cordon as I mentioned to you in the P1X. Now as we got the network, just go and assign as usual. Wrong button. And I'll just switch it to option 1. So then the satnet and doing sat all now. So now the assignment is done, and I'll quickly go and see the LPT file. So we open the LPT file in a text pad. In this point, I'll just open LPN as well, just to show how the stars are coded. If I search for area, then you can see like in a LPN file, you have details like I coded in as 150, 150, and 500, and then this is the cordons I have defined, and also it shows like how many nodes and links are inside, how many zones are inside and outside, and it lists all the zones in the LPN file. And you can see the same information in P1X as well when you open the UFN file under the information area. If I look at the LPT file, which is having the final assigned results, if I go scroll down to the bottom where you will see the summary statistics usually, and if I search for toll to make it quick, so you will have a new summary statistics for all the trips who are paying tolls discretionarily. So it's not including any mandatory trips. It's just including the tolls, it's including the trips which are having options to either pay the toll or not pay the toll. So seeing here, there are about 985 trips spreading across 70 OD pairs are paying tolls discretionally. So they are basically zones which are outside the charge area, but they still go through the charge area to pay the toll. And the same information is available in SatLook also for analysis. And if I open P1X and see the network, so I'm just going to open the UFS network, and I'll open my secondary network as well as a no charge network. And if I open both of them, I'll just resume last. I don't have it in resume last, so I'll just go and plot the nodes. So we got our network open in P1X now. So if I want to see, like the immediate thing I want to see is how my traffic is rerouted between no charge network and my option 1 network. So if I just see the actual flows or demand flow, so if I just say 1 minus 2, and it's a usual flow difference plot I'm going to do. So if I plot demand flow, then if I just change it to bandwidth to make it clear, so you can clearly see like my cordon area is this, and you have flows rerouted now, especially to the bypass roads and diverted from the town center. So the magnitude of the change is depends on how much charge we are putting in. We can also see few more things like if I want to see, for example, what are my garden areas, just like I want to show my garden links as for the client or for to someone else, then you have new options in P1X under link annotations. So if I go down, then you can see uh, at the bottom where you can see like three new options. One is to view pack tag data. There are, I mean, I will ignore that for time being because that's in a binary format and stored on the more detail in section 20. But the more useful ones are the tag coordinate links and charge area number. So if I see tag coordinate links, that's basically the links which I coded my coordinate. So if I say that, you can quickly see that these are my coordinate links. If I have two networks, I mean two coordinate systems, then you will see the number increasing. So this is one, and if I have my second charge system, that will be two. And if I have one and two merging, then it will be three, etc. Similarly, if I quickly show you guys how is my charge area looks like. So that's charge area number, and that's you can see like we have only one charge system and everything is one. As I said, if you have multiple charge systems, the number will go up. Zero being no toll, and one and two will go increase respectively. So that's seeing the things what we have coded in the network, and we have seen the flow difference plot. And if I show you the analysis options, so if I go to analysis option, you have a new menu now separately for area charges. So if I click on the area charges, then you see few options like few options here, and one is information. It's the same information which is available from the master menu. So if I go back to the master menu, um, so this is the master menu, and if I go back and see information, and you can see new option for seeing area tolls, and that is a detail giving like this is in pence what we defined and what's the equivalent in seconds, and then how many zones are inside, outside, etc. So the similar information is for easy reference. It's all gathered together in a single place under analysis option area charges. So if I click on the information, you'll get the same information here. And also if I click on that, you will get what you see in choice of link annotation under flows. So we have a few options in link annotation to see the disaggregated flows who discretionarily pay toll. As mandatory tolls, we will be knowing because if I take, for example, zone 7, which is completely within my charge area, then they will be definitely paying charge. So I'm not interested in that. But say if I want to see the flows between 5 and 3, then I'm more interested in that. And so if I plot, so this is basically showing you all the regimes. If you remember the slide which Rajesh showed you on the charge regimes, 0 is trips not paying any toll, and 1 is trips paying toll. In this case, it's simple because it's only one charge system. If you have two charge systems, then the number will be 0, 1, 2, 3. 1 for toll 1, 2 for toll 2, and 3 for using both, 0 being no trips. So if I quickly show tag 0, just to confirm, we can see like it's all the trips which are just avoiding the charge area. And if I return and if I show you the demand flow for the charge area, then you can see like who are all actually using those. But as you can see, like there are no trips descending to these zones which are within the charge area because they are mandatory, and you can see only trips which are origining and descending outside my charge areas. And there are a few more analysis options like say like as I said, if I want to see how my trips have rerouted between zone, say like zone 5 to 3, for example. We can do that by in a usual way by setting this origin zone and setting my destination zone. And then you can change the user class if you want. And you can see like there are 193 trips between these options. And if I see the forest, which will show all the possible routes, then you can see like of the 100% trips, 66% are diverting now to use the bypass, and 34 are using the main road. So if we see the no charge network, then you might find like more than 99 or almost 100% is using just the shortest path. And also you can see like how much toll is paid because of the rerouting and because of the discretionary trips. And if I go out, we can also see all the possible routes and their respective tolls. So if I click on OD routes, it gives me a few hypothetical options, like say my first option being like no tolls paid. So if I assume like my TAC 1 is banned, so I'm not allowed to use TAC 1, then I will just go through the longest route available, and I will end up paying that much. I mean, there is no toll, so it's not displayed. And if I click next, then it gives me, okay, my toll one, I mean, my TAC 1 is open, and now I can use the TAC 1. And if I use TAC 1, I will be paying 600 600 seconds. It's in second generalized cost. And it'll cost me 600 seconds, and then the total cost it says. And as you can see, like it says this is the optimum to use. Because that's if I sum all these, I mean if I sum the cost for this, and if I see the cost for this, the cost for using the TAC 1 is still minimum. So that's why it's showing that as optimum, and that's why still 34% trips are using the charge area. Also, there are options now to see the OD trees. So it will show for my selected origin. So my origin zone is zone 5. So if I see tag trees for say just tag 1 to begin with, then it just shows origining from here and destining to zones which are within my tag 1. And if I say not tag, then it shows all the other trees which are not part of the tag area, and you have option to see for all options as well, and that's just tag trees. Similarly, you have an option to see the trees for the normal routing, like if I see that, then that's pretty much the same. So that's in bigger networks you will see something different there, but this is very small to trigger any change. And going back, that's mainly the options you can see on P1X in terms of analysis. One thing to note is that the normal tree view, the standard tree options, which is available as part of analysis, is disabled when you open a TAC network. So the only option available is through the area charges option. And the SLA, it's still under development. So you can't do an SLA with a charge system yet. So that's currently under development for the current version, which we will be releasing as for the Saturn Next users. So closing P1X down, we have few more analysis options, like in terms of extracting the trips, paying toll, and in terms of doing some skims, etc. So the first thing is the SATWIN still needs to be extended. So the new batch files which are available for the purpose of area charging is not available through SATWIN. So the first one I would like to show is Tack Trips. So if I run a command prompt using Saturn, and if I call Tack Trips, what Tack Trips does is it gives me a matrix of trips who pay toll. The default option is the default is it dumps out just the discretionary trips, so it won't include any mandatory trips. But you can extend that to include the mandatory trips by adding an all at the end, the keyword all. So if I quickly get the file name copied. Um, Command line. So just giving the UFS name and asking for the output file name, and if I say Tack Trips mat, and if I just do a discretionary trips, and if I say run, then it gives me a matrix. So I'll quickly do for all option as well. So I'm just going to add all at the end and do a matrix for it's going to replace, sorry. Um, if I just run that. So just use the same file name. So I'm just now going to run mx to quickly see my two matrices. So if I open trips mat, which is just my discretionary ones, and if I open my all, which is my um, all trips, and if I quickly show the totals. The one thing to note here is it's going to be block matrix, as Rajesh mentioned. So the block one being for no toll payers, and block two is for paying charge one. And if you have say two charges, then it will be 1, 2, 3, 4. So you'll have 4 blocks in addition to the 3 levels for the user classes. And as you can see, like both trips has the same total. So it's just the only difference being is our block 2, where in one matrix you will see it paying less, and in the other matrix you will see it paying more. I think it might have not overwritten the file. I'll just quickly redo it again. Yes, I'll delete these files. That's the idea. Like if you do without all, then it does for the discretionary trips, and if we do the so that's for my discretionary, and if I open the same MX, I'll open. Yeah, you can see like it's I'll open one after another, just to check. But one will have lesser trips paying lesser trips in my block one. I mean, sorry, block two, which is paying toll one, and the all trips will have trips paying toll two. I'll skip because of the timing, but that's how it will work. And the other option we have is to dump the minimum cost. So you can use the existing batch to dump the cost, which is sat cost, which will give me the minimum cost. So if I run it with option one and give my matrix name, then that will give me a matrix with minimum charge, including the area charge. Also, the other batch, what we have is skim. So for doing skim, similar to skim all, we have a batch called skim tack, which is not there in the SAT win yet. So if I run skim tack, and we can call the keywords like distance and then the file name and then the matrix name. So it's skimdist, and if I run that, then that will give me the distance skim. And similarly, you can use time, penalty, toll, etc. And one more batch we have, which is similar to Tack Trips, is skim tij, which so there is an option in there is a new parameter in Saturn now called .tack, which defines whether we need to store all the trips paying tolls inside the UFS file or not. So if you use the default is true, and if you use .tack equal to true, then you can use Tack Trips to extract the toll paying trips directly. But if there are say like no, if the .tack is set to false, then you have this batch called skim tij, which skims through the UFS in the same way, and using the save it assignment, and then using save it assignment, it creates you the minimum cost. It gives you the minimum discretionary trips paying charge. Also, similar to the tag trips, you have option here to include all trips as well. Also, we have one more batch file called tag tactiles. Tactiles, and what that does is it takes UFS as input, UFS and the TIJ matrix, which we create either through skim TIJ or tag trips, and create a matrix of create an average toll matrix, which is the skim of average charge paid, which includes the normal tolls, that is our link penalties, etc. I mean link tolls, and it just gives us by user class a single average value. So if I make use of the tag trips matrix which I dumped, and also the UFS file, then I will get the average toll paid. So that's basically the new batch options available. For all our Saturn Next users, we will be sending a note which contains all these batch and with the details. And it's part of section 20 in the user manual now. And if I open section 20, you can see it's been extended for including the area charge, and you can see all the batch options there. So that's it from me on the demo side.
Thanks, Vijay. If you can just go back to the slide. I mean, you did mention about the Saturn Next program, and who are a part of Saturn Next would be receiving some notes and example files and a copy of this version for them to test. So I'll just quickly, I mean, for the benefit of others who are not aware of what Saturn Next is, or maybe might have forgotten because this has been there for quite some time. So what is Saturn Next is, it gives an early access for the users. As a Saturn Next member, you get early hands-on experience on the potential new features like this area charging. Even before it is released, you will be able to test the version and then chance to have an influence the development. If you have a good idea, then that could be implemented before the final release is done, and you get an opportunity to work with the team, with us, and also to resolve some of the in-house IT issues, because every company has got its own IT setup, so you can sort out all those in-house IT problems before release. Sorry, something with my throat. And as part of the Saturn Next for this current year, it's already underway, so if you have not registered, then please register. But if you're part of this program, then you get a chance to, one is this area charging, learn the new feature and test it on different networks. Then very soon we'll be releasing the SAT GPU beta version, and then there are some enhancements being carried out to SATView, so SATView 1.30, so that you'll get a chance to look at some of the new features and then ensure that, influence in adding more features before it's finally released sometime in Q1 next year. So how do you, what are the requirements to be part of the Saturn Next program? So the users must be in a position to quickly install new versions, i.e. that means you should have all the permissions and privileges to install new softwares in your system in the office. Some basic tests and continuously report back on a timely fashion, and then be able to participate in these kind of webinars, which would be generally once in a month or something like that. And then you need to invest some of your personal time and have the necessary communication facilities like that. You should have Skype and those kind of things, or email access and those kind of things. What are the restrictions in terms of the software that you will be receiving as part of the Saturn Next program? These are development license, so it will have an expiry time limit for that. So you download the license from the internet, and then with a limited number of these licenses are only limited to number, so we don't give too many licenses out. So this is not a huge crowd. We would like it to be a smaller crowd so that we get the feedbacks also, and people also who are actually able to support us should be part of this team. So if you're not actively responding, you become a member, but if you're not actively responding, then we will require any license to be surrendered so that somebody else who is actually interested will be able to take part in this program and support. So some of the questions you generally would come to you is like, can I use it for my fee earning work? Yes, you can. You have got the right to use it, but remember, it's at your own risk, because this is a software still under development. There's a version which will be under development which is not yet released, so you need to check with your client before you use it for your fee earning work. And also sometimes what happens is we might withdraw that development or whatever feature was there in the beta version that you're testing and it could be replaced because of some difficulties in it. And as I said, it's a time-based license, so if you start working with it on a fee earning job, maybe in the middle of the project the license might expire and we may not be able to continue that license for your work. Do I get my cost reimbursed? No, it's your personal time, as I said earlier. And so how do you register for this? So please send us an email. Send your interest by sending an email to us to the standard usual address, saturnsoftware@atkinsglobal.com. Then we would get back to you requesting you some few technical details which you might have to fill up and then send it back to us. And once that has been reviewed, we will be sending you an agreement which is the terms and conditions are very minimal, so you need to sign that off, and then you become a part of the Saturn Next program and you will have access to these kind of beta versions. So if you want to get your hands onto the area charging version, please send your interest to the email ID which I mentioned, and then you can test the area charging feature. With that, I think we have come to the close. We have got 7 more minutes. Happy to take any questions now. If you want, you can type it on the chat window, or you can unmute yourself and ask the questions.